Patriots for having me tonight. Let me introduce myself. I want to thank Josh Schoemann for being here. I commend you, Josh, for your tenure as county executive in Washington County. Smaller government, lower taxes, leaner and more efficient government. That's a great model for the whole state of Wisconsin. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for your service in the Army in Iraq, and I know you're spending a lot of time away from your family to come all over the state, so thank you for that as well. As was said, I am running for 56th Assembly with the plan of Dave Murphy to not run in 2026. I commend Dave for the 12 years he gave to the state. He did a lot in terms of affordable workforce housing, did a lot of work for free speech for campus. He's working even now to improve the ability of high school students to transfer credits to universities or transfer credits to trade schools to help quicken the process of getting into a career, which is what we want for our children. So I hope to maybe continue that effort. The 56th Assembly, for those that don't know, is North Appleton, Grand Chute, Greenville, Hortonville, New London, towns of Center, Ellington, Black Creek, Bear Creek, Shiocton. It's mostly Outagamie County. There's a small slice of eastern Waupaca County here in New London and a little bit north of here. I am familiar with this group, Wolf River Area Patriots, because I've been on the board of the Appleton version of this called Fox Valley Conservatives since March. And those two, along with the Northeast Wisconsin Patriots in Green Bay, we all formed the Wisconsin Conservative Coalition with the mission to educate and activate conservative voters, and thank you guys for your efforts on that. We're in a bit of a transition phase in Fox Valley Conservatives. Larry Cole is stepping down and Mike Jonke is now the president. We're expanding the board of directors. We're trying to get younger. We're trying to recruit younger and more active members. We're trying to figure out how to make better use of social media and advertising. We're having several visioning sessions, long Saturday morning visioning sessions, how to better do all this. I've sort of found my role since March. Part of it is secretarial. I'm pretty good at jotting notes and then summarizing them after public forums like this and meetings and the visioning sessions. Pretty good at finding speakers and topics. But also, I've learned along the way, there's other conservative groups out there, right? There's Moms for Liberty, the Young Republicans, the County Party, certainly Turning Point, all doing great work. But what I've figured out, at least on our end of the state, is we don't always work together well. And so when we don't work together well, that's just a gift to the Democrats and to the liberal cause, to the liberal opinions. And so I've really been trying to reach out to all these groups and get us to all row in the same direction. I was thinking today that's is important for Josh, it's important for Maria Lazar, who we need to elect in April, but I think also for local elections, school board, county board, very important if we can all get together and work together. A little bit more about me. I went to high school in Portage, Wisconsin, did all my training to become a doctor at UW-Madison, came out as a cancer doctor, prescribing and monitoring chemotherapy in 1993. First job was in Janesville, but had a better opportunity up here in 1999. So my wife Heidi and I, we moved up to Appleton at that time. We live in Grand Chute. Mainly I've worked in Appleton, Neenah, and Oshkosh, but every Tuesday was in Waupaca for 19 years, up until 2018. And since about 2020, I've been tapering my practice. In 2024, I did work here in New London for 4 months as a fill-in. Eventually, I was president of our independent oncology group, 130 employees. We did merge with ThedaCare in 2018. I was very happy that all the employees, or nearly all of them, were able to assimilate into the ThedaCare system. And then I did become the medical director, overseeing 25 oncology providers, doctors, nurse practitioners, physician assistants. The last time I worked was February of this year, 2025. I'm pretty much retired at this point from being the cancer doctor. 5 kids all graduated Appleton North. Along the way, since being up here, always active in conservative causes, supporting conservative candidates, hosted Governor Walker 3 times for fundraisers, had Tommy Thompson, had a great time with him in my basement. He was there to support Jim Steinecke. Annette Ziegler and Rebecca Bradley were down in my basement for fundraisers when they first ran for state Supreme Court. At the present time, working with the Allegheny County Republican Party to try to recruit county and school board candidates. So I did run last year for state senate in 2024 in the gerrymandered and heavily Democratic 18th district, which is Appleton, Neenah, Oshkosh. I did win the GOP primary quite handily. Based on the map, I was predicted to lose the general election by 10%. I was heavily supported by the state senate-led committee to elect a Republican Senate, well-funded, well-organized, knocked a lot of doors, of course, but we did lose, but by 6%, not 10%. Very proud of the effort. We're going to use all those lessons that we learned this next year in the 56th Assembly, which, fortunately, favors the GOP candidate by about 60 to 40, so more favorable to whoever wins GOP primary. At present, I'm the only announced candidate. I have spreadsheets of 25 constituents in the district who's going to help me with signature signs, knock doors. I'm going to stick around tonight, so I'd love to meet anybody in the district. I'd love your support or just to get to know you. Appreciate that. Funds have already been raised and set aside for a good effort similar to 2024. I was able to meet with Pastor Roberts and Chris Martinson last week. Thank you for that. And Chris Martinson has done a wonderful job flipping school boards. I think you guys know that, to conservative. Chris has offered his endorsement. I have endorsements from current Assemblyman Ron Tusler, Nate Gustafson, Dean Crawford, Mike Jonke, who's the president now of Fox Valley Conservatives, and Ed Hooter, the wonderful guy who's past county chair of Winnebago County. So again, I do have business cards either on me or at the table here. You can look me up at phillipsforwisconsin.com. You can join my Facebook page, Phillips for Wisconsin. I'd like that, and share some posts, and I gotta remember to take a picture tonight. And so just quickly, I'm gonna close with the 3 main reasons that I want to run for office. I've just always been involved. I've always kind of been leader. I've always kept up with current issues, and I still want to have impact. I could retire, I could golf more, travel more, but it's not in me. So that's one of the main reasons I'm doing this. The 56th Assembly is fiscally and socially conservative. So am I. I want to represent and reflect the values of the 56th Assembly. Pro-life, pro-law enforcement, small government, independence from government, but also self-reliance, capitalized self-reliance. I think God created 2 sexes. I don't think boys should be in girls' sports. I think schools are for learning, not indoctrination. And I applaud the President Trump, for his efforts to stop illegal immigration, drug and human trafficking, and to make America more competitive and less of a punching bag on the world economic stage. And then the final reason for wanting to run is, as I've said, I want to try to bring together the various conservative factions working toward a common goal. This was second nature as a physician. I worked with teams of nurses, other staff, other doctors, and you see all kinds of personalities and opinions, but ultimately we were on the same team, and we would work toward common goals. And I'd like to see that happen on the conservative side. And we need this in 2026. We absolutely need this. We need Maria Lazar to be elected in April. We cannot go down 5-2 in the state Supreme Court. It's going to be a tough election. Everybody has to pitch in. We need a Republican governor as a step toward a more conservative Wisconsin, someone like Josh Schoemann. So again, thank you, and I'll stop there.
Our next speaker is Washington County Executive Josh Schoemann, who is running for governor.
Thank you, Seth. All right, how's everybody doing?
All right.
All right. You all came out to hear a 20-minute sermon from me on a Tuesday night. That's amazing. I am Josh Schoemann. I am a Christian first. I am the son of a minister, and my mother was a registered nurse. And I really did prepare a short 45-minute sermon for you, but I promise you I won't deliver it. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself, and then a little bit about why I am running for governor and why you should care. So first of all, son of a minister, registered nurse. My wife Jody and I have known each other for about 30 years. We met in 6th grade at a long jump pit. I was about this tall. She was about this tall. She's still this tall. And when I told her that I was going to date her someday and I wanted to marry her, she laughed at me. Well, then we ran into each other again in college, and I was this tall, and I was much more muscular. I wear a vest now. She wasn't laughing anymore. We got engaged not long after. We've been married for 24 years this year. It'll be 25 next year. We got married when I was 19 years old. Engaged when I was 18. Our marriage happened right after I got back from basic training in AIT. We were in college when we got married, and we lived most of our time at UW-Whitewater until I was about a junior in college. And I'll share a story with you that I just shared recently with a number of county board chairs, since I have a full 20 minutes. And it goes like this. I was in my junior year. I was studying to be a social studies teacher at Whitewater. And the truth was, I just wanted to coach wrestling. Any good fans from New London and Hortonville will appreciate a good wrestler. And I was one. But that's really all I wanted to do. I didn't want to teach. And the longer I spent time with teachers, the more I realized most of them didn't actually want to either. So anyway, while I'm preparing to teach, of course, student teaching is coming up. I'm a junior entering senior year pretty soon. And, I'm really praying. I've been married since I'm 19 and talking to the Lord pretty much on a nightly basis, saying, I'd really love to have some international experience. I'm born and raised in Wisconsin, and I'm kind of going to be here for the rest of my life if I don't have some experience. Like, maybe I should go to Australia. My brother-in-law is from Australia. I'll go student teach over there. And I'm praying over and over and again that I get this international experience. Well, I come home from school one day, and I normally don't come home during the day. And the phone rings, and it's on the wall. It's not one of these cell phones at the time. This is 2003, January of 2003. And I typically don't answer the phone, but I decide to answer the phone. And I pick up the phone. Hello, this is Josh. Yeah, this is Warrant Officer so-and-so. Hey, sir, how you doing? Not great. Okay. What can I help you with? He said, well, I've got some bad news. I'm like, okay. What's that? He said, we're getting deployed. You have to go drop out of school this afternoon, and we're going to get activated on February 4th. Get your things in order. We're going to Kuwait and Iraq. Anything else, sir? Nope, that's it. I will see you on the 4th at the Armory in Madison. Thank you. I hang up the phone. I literally look up and go, this is not what I meant. So I got back from Iraq, and to fast forward through the story, we were home for one day before we were sent up to Fort McCoy. 9 months later to the day, my oldest son, Cale, was born. He is now 21 years old. He's a senior at UW La Crosse. My youngest son, Drake, is a senior at Kettle Moraine Lutheran High School. Both boys I'm super proud of. We live on an 80-acre farm east of West Bend. We love it. I wouldn't call myself a farmer. I just own a farm, okay? We do farm 2.5 acres of lavender and have a small entrepreneurial business that we started about 3 years ago. But I will tell you, last winter, if you don't know any farmers, last winter absolutely kicked our crops butt, and we are recovering from it this year. But it's been a wonderful exercise. But my profession, my trade, is public service. And that sounds strange coming from a Republican candidate, but it's the truth, and here's why. When I was in Iraq in 2003, there's a number of stories I could share, but long story short, I came back from that experience at the beginning of the war, dedicating the rest of my life to the service and sacrifice of the guys and gals that didn't make it back. And I wanted to find a profession and a purpose that was bigger than myself, where I could reflect the love of my Lord in everything I did by loving my neighbor as myself. I found that in public service. And so I've dedicated my whole life to it. I've been in public service for almost 20 years. I've been with Washington County for 12. I've been the county executive for the last 6. Now, as a son of a minister, my dad took us around a lot in the summertime, going to shut-in visits and hospital calls, as you can imagine. And I was stuck out in that car with no air conditioning, being forced to listen to the AM radio. I thought it was torture. It turns out it was Rush Limbaugh. Any Limbaugh fans in the room? Yeah, all right. Major ditto. Yeah, me too. So not only did the Holy Spirit descend upon me, but Rush Limbaugh did, and he sits right about here. Small government and low taxes, strong national defense, and public safety at the local and state level is what I believe deep down inside. And it's exactly what we've done in Washington County. I didn't think it was something you're just supposed to run for office with those little flyers that we hand out to everybody, those obnoxious mailers that you get, and all of the digital ads that you see on your Facebook page. I thought when you got into office, you're actually supposed to then go and execute on it. So that's what we've done. In the 12 years I've been with the county, we've made county government smaller in every metric you can think of. Every metric. Now, before I get into that, I want to explain why. The reason that I got into public service in the first place, the reason that I ran for Washington County Executive in the first place, is focusing on the people that I serve. Exactly the same reason I got into public service in the first place. I'm here for you. I've been in this race for almost 185 days now. In the first 127, I made a trip all the way around the state of Wisconsin. And I don't mean I drove in a large circle, although I did. The circle was more like this. But I visited all 72 counties in 127 days. Now, if you notice, most candidates, when they jump into races, they send you those text messages. Have you ever received one of these? What do you think of me? What do you think of my potential opponent? What are the issues that matter most to you? What do you do with those text messages? Stop. You hit stop. Delete them. What do you do with the mailers that you get after the 473rd in October of the even number of years? Throw them in the garbage? Yeah. Instead, I drove county to county to county to county 72 times over, and I asked people directly, what is most important to you? What do you care most about? You see, this race, this service that I do, it has nothing to do with me. This isn't the governor's state. It's not a candidate's state. It's your state. It's our state. And so the only thing that matters is what your priorities are, not mine. And I've heard them loudly and clearly, and I'll talk about them in a few minutes. Now, all of my experience in Washington County has led to smaller government and lower taxes and strong public safety. In my tenure, when I began in Washington County almost 13 years ago, our tax rate was $2.88 a thousand. The budget that I just proposed that will be approved in 2 weeks will be $1.40 a thousand. Yeah, we've cut it in half. Now, tax rates, some of you are probably on town boards or county boards or school boards. Tax rates are government math. We can play games with those, and I've been in government for 20 years. Let me tell you, people play games. Property tax levies, property tax collections, is where the rubber hits the road. And this budget that I just proposed, the property tax collection for 2026, tax year 2026, collections in 2025, will be $100,000 lower than it was the year I became county executive. And it'll be lower than it was in 2008 before the Great Recession. What if we took that to Madison? Now, it's not just numbers, because I believe, I'm not a no government guy. If you want a candidate who believes in just burn it down and let it go, I'm not that person. But I am a very small and effective government guy. And that's what I mean when I say strong public safety. The sheriff's office is our number one priority. It's not the only priority. Don't tell the sheriff that. But it is the number one priority. We have other priorities like mental health services and roads and economic growth, and I would say at the state level, education as well. But at the top of the list is always public safety. Securing safety and happiness, right? That's why governments are instituted if you read the Declaration of Independence. For us, all that other stuff that isn't one of those priority areas has gone away. Whether it's to nonprofits or other government entities, sold off to private industry. If the private industry is willing to do it, let them do it. Government doesn't need to do it. And the results speak for themselves. We have less acreage, we have less buildings, we have less lane miles, we have 25% less employees. When I started, we had 850. Today we have 625. What if we took that to Madison? Yeah. Every way you can think of, we've made government smaller. We've also made it more effective. In the same amount of time, spending on the sheriff's department has almost doubled. Spending on our roads has almost doubled. You remember the whole Scott Holes campaign, the Just Fix It stuff, when Tony Evers was running against Scott Walker, and a number of organizations kind of turned against Walker because he wasn't putting enough money into roads? Yeah, me too. But we didn't just talk about it. We talked to our engineers and said, you know something? They've got a point. How much money should we be spending per year? You probably do something like this at your home. I've got my roof, I've got siding, I've got a kitchen remodel, I've got this project, that project, and the other project. Over the next decade, that's gonna happen to me. How much should I save and spend per year in order to maintain my home? Well, we did the same thing on our county road system. Every county road, every type of maintenance you can think of, crack filling, seal coating, ditch work, road repaving, road reconstruction, anything you can think of. Put it on a list. I want to know all the way to 2050. How much is it going to cost me? And build in inflation. And then tell me on average per year, how much should I spend? You know how much we were spending before we did that plan? About 1.5 million a year. Today, we're spending about 3.8 million a year. And we still cut taxes the way I just described. Imagine if we brought that to Madison. You see, my frustration with the Capitol, amongst a multitude of things, Tony Evers somewhere close to the top of the list. My frustration is they have tried to become everything to everybody. And when everything is a priority, nothing's a priority. And that is where we sit. Now, I mentioned I've gone to all 72 counties. We just tallied it up before we came in the room. I'm on round 2, state tour 2.0, and we're 25 counties in, over a third of the way through again. And I've heard some things very, very loudly and clearly. The top issues, and it's not close in this state, are affordability and education. And the rest are below by a stretch. Let me talk about those two first. Affordability. The income tax rate in Wisconsin at the top bracket is almost double what it is in Illinois. I don't know why the hell we're using Illinois as a benchmark, but apparently we are. Their income tax is half of what our top bracket is, just under. And it's flat. Ours is progressive. I believe we should take our income tax, flatten it below Illinois, have it completely flat, and then 0.5% per year until it's completely gone. Property taxes. Who is so excited for the property tax bill to come in 6 weeks? Yeah, all right, all right. Yeah, run that guy out on the rail. Just wait until you see them, because your school district portion of your property tax bill is going up exponentially, I guarantee it. It is the effectuation of Governor Evers' 402-year veto. And you are all going to feel it in your pocketbook, as am I. Property taxes are out of control. We're going to be taxing our seniors out of the state. Whether it's a property tax bill that used to be a couple $1,000 and is now $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, or whether it's an income tax bill that has resulted in CPAs of our retirees literally telling them, you know what, why don't you just go down to Florida for 6 months and 1 day? It's nice and warm and you can get out of here. And then your residency is down there and you pay 0% income tax. You see, we have created a tax hell. We have created an environment that's almost impossible for retirees to hold on to the homes and the families that they've built. And what's worse is we're putting our kids in an impossible situation because they can't even own a home. The cost of owning that is out of control. Now, property taxes and income taxes are bad, and utility rates are just as bad. And they're about to get much, much worse. So affordability is at or near the top of the list. Well, what I was surprised to find as I went across Wisconsin was education is up as close, or in some communities even above, affordability. And what I mean by that is they are willing to pay more even, because they are that concerned about the state of education in their community. Now, it's a multitude of things. It's declining enrollments. See, my generation, I'm the oldest of millennials. My generation isn't having kids, mostly because we can't afford homes. And so you can't afford a home, you can't afford to have a kid. But the long story short for our schools is declining enrollment, which means declining revenue, which means declining economies. We're built on a system of funding our schools that is from the 1970s, was modified in the 1990s. What was happening in the 70s and the 90s with school enrollment? It was going like this. That's me. We are the children of the baby boomers. There's more baby boomers than any generation in American history. And they were having kids like it was going out of style, sometimes to a fault. My generation, now the biggest generation, isn't having them. So a funding model that was built on economic prosperity, economic growth, population growth is not going to work in the next 25 years. But worse than that, while we've been focusing on funding, and God knows Tony Evers is focused on funding for education, he's spending money on schools like it's going out of style. Exponential increases. Meanwhile, what are the outcomes doing? Precipitous decline. There's zero accountability. And you know why? I get frustrated with conservatives. We say too often, well, let the money follow the kid. Universal school choice. I am a huge believer in universal school choice. My oldest son went to a public high school. My youngest son goes to a parochial high school on a voucher. I am as big a believer as you're ever going to find. But when you say my kid is, the money should follow my child, what you're really telling me is my kid's a commodity. Our kids aren't commodities. It's the outcomes that we need to worry about, because it's their futures we need to worry about, because it's our future collectively. Until we change the incentive model, the bureaucracy and the unions are going to keep acting the way they're acting. I believe that's the root cause problem of our education industrial complex being so broken. No more boys and girls sports, no more woke ideology. We pull it out root and branch. All of that is at and near the top of the list. It is why education and affordability are together at the top, and they're completely intertwined with one another. Now, 3 others, and then I can go on for another 5 minutes. Election integrity. I have run elections from testing the machine personally all the way to auditing the results at the end. And I don't just mean counting ballots, okay? How many of you have ever been through a recount process? Yeah, it's mind-numbing, is it not? All they do is count the number of ballots that went through the machine and compare it to how many ballots it says were on the tape. Well, that doesn't do you any good. You need to count how many votes were on each ballot. And then compare that to what was on the table. Well, we've done that in Washington County twice. I'm also the only clerk in 2012, during the Walker recall process, I'm the only clerk in Wisconsin that has actually purged the voting roll lists on time and with fidelity. And it is critically important. That is the foundational issue with our election system. The number of people, how do we have 7.5 million, or is it 7.8 million, somewhere in that range, million people on a voter roll list? There's only 6 million people in Wisconsin. Dead people certainly can vote, as can illegal aliens right now, because the WEC doesn't want to give up those lists, as can college students who don't even live here anymore, and probably only lived here for a year or two, 4 at the most. The root cause of the issue is purging those voter roll lists, but you're never getting to that. I don't care Republican or Democrat or who you are, until Wisconsin Election Commission is abolished and gone. We set up a system intentionally to fail. It drives me crazy, the people that voted for that, but I know why they did it. Because a 3-3 tie ends in constant gridlock. And who wins when there's a 3-3 tie? Politicians. That's who. Wisconsin Election Commission, and now I have to work with the legislature. The governor doesn't have a magic wand, but he or she has a heck of a lot of influence. I will work to abolish the Wisconsin Election Commission and put the responsibility back in the hands of an elected official who is ultimately responsible to you. Homeownership and the roads still stink. I talked about the roads, but let me touch on homeownership. I don't say housing, because housing results in massive apartment buildings where we pay landlords $1,800 to $2,000 a month. I say home ownership because we've completely forgotten how to build small houses on small lots, the same kind that World War II generation moved into after they came back from overseas. We don't even know how to do it anymore. We've made it illegal in most communities in Wisconsin. And our young people are suffering the consequences of it. We don't have enough supply, and we don't want it. Well, that's going to change when I'm governor, just like it's changed when I've been in Washington County. We are in the process now. The average price of a home in Wisconsin, believe it or not, is $350,000. Yeah. In Washington County, it's about to eclipse $400,000. In Dane County, it's about $460,000. A young startup cop and a startup teacher with a combined income do not qualify for that mortgage. What are we doing? We're stealing the American dream from the next generation is what we're doing. John Locke wrote the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of property, and then some schmuck named Thomas Jefferson stole it and made it life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Have you ever heard of it? That's what we're stealing from our kids. Jefferson was an okay guy, all right, fine. I'm personally a John Adams guy, but neither here nor there. The bottom line is, those 5 issues have come across loud and clear over and over and over. Whether I was in Douglas County or Racine County, whether I was in Door County or Iowa County. Now, there were others. Healthcare costs are out of control. Crime statistics, depending on where you are, particularly in Milwaukee, but also elsewhere. Those things matter, but those 5 are at the top of the list, and it's not close, and affordability and education far exceed all of the rest. If you walk away from this with nothing else, know one thing. Those 5 issues, those are your issues. And that is exactly the kind of governor I'm going to be. It's not going to be about me. It's not even going to be about that state capital or who resides or operates in it. It's going to be about you. And we're going to push authority and accountability back as close to you as possible. And you watch those people in Madison squeal. And they will. And they will. I've been through the counties once. I'm a third of the way through the counties twice. My goal is to get all across the state and hear from folks just like you, over and over and over again. As issues change, my priorities change, but one thing is consistent. I think government sucks. And I'm here to make it suck less. We need it. We need it. We need good cops. We need good teachers. We don't need the bureaucracy. We don't need the burdensome unions. We need government that serves people again. And the minute people and in schools, our kids become the priority, everything will begin to fix itself. It's just going to take a couple terms, a few terms. We've screwed it up for a long time. Let's work together to fix it. I need your help. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a billionaire. These races are tough. But I want to give you a little hope in the candidacy that we're running. Don't put your hope in politicians. Your hope belongs in one thing and one thing only, and that's our Lord. But in a race where the people are actually going to overcome all of the establishment, all of the status quo, all of the money, and there will be tens of millions of dollars in money. Look at history to see what works. And that's what I studied before I jumped in this race. In my lifetime, I'm 44, I'll be 45 next year. How many Republicans have we elected governor? 4, 2. You know who they are? Tommy and Scott. And in 50 years, we've only elected 3. The third is Lee Sherman Dreyfus in 1978. The first 2 have a heck of a lot in common with me. Under 45, young, energetic whippersnappers who burnt shoe leather and burnt tire rubber and pressed flesh everywhere they went across the state and worked their tail ends off and didn't have a heck of a lot of money. And one was a county executive and son of a minister. I'm just saying, okay? He did okay. And the third was just like him, just a little bit older. The Republican profile that wins is the one I happen to be. Because it's not about me. Just like it wasn't about Walker, just like it wasn't about Tommy, and just like it wasn't about Lee Sherman Dreyfus, despite the red vest and the school bus and the pep band. All of them made it about you and us. And that's exactly what our campaign is going to be about. So thank you for the opportunity. Happy to take any questions at your direction, Seth.
Okay, we'll open this for questions. We don't want long questions. Please make the questions short. And I reserve the right to cut you off if you make them too long. Yes.
If you go after WAC and try to get Megan Wolf out of her job, you're going to be bumping heads an awful lot with Robin Voss. How are you going to get around that?
I'm trying to think of how to say this nicely and without cussing. I'm not worried about it. I have been an open, outspoken critic of the Wisconsin Election Commission for years. I was an open, outspoken critic of the Government Accountability Board, which is just a different version of the same trash. When I win in November of 2026 and take office in January of 2027, everybody in the legislative branch will know I ran and won on abolishing WEC. If they don't, it's not that they're not listening to me. It's that they're flipping you all the bird. I do not believe that will happen. Now, in terms of Robin Voss, I'm not worried about Robin. I'm not worried about Devin, I'm not worried about any one legislator. I know that those guys know well enough that if you come in with a mandate, and I plan to come in with a mandate, that they will play ball. I expect to bump heads, not with Megan Wolf necessarily, but the members of the Wisconsin Election Commission themselves. That's who I expect we're gonna bump heads with, and Democrats. So, I'm not convinced Robin's running for re-election. He's been very iffy about it on television lately. Here's what I believe. I believe it's time for a new generation of conservative leadership. The establishment doesn't work anymore. The status quo's gotta go. We're not living in 1999. I mean, it was a great year I graduated high school, but still, it's over. Like, it's time to move on, and Wisconsin Election Commission is part of what we've got to part with. I believe we're gonna be able to do that. I'm not sure whether Robin's there or not, but he will know it's one of my top priorities. And at the end of the day, he likes to cut deals. I guess if we've got to cut deal to get rid of WEC, we're gonna do it.
Will you have a Doge part of your administration?
Can I be a little bit snippy for a second with you?
Sure.
All right, lady, I was Doge before Doge was cool. You see, Donald Trump and I am no Donald Trump. There is one Donald Trump. Anybody who claims to be Donald Trump is full of. See, I keep trying not to cuss. Donald Trump is a New York City brawler, entertainer, and developer. That's where he learned to operate, right? If you can't tolerate that, stop reading his tweets and stop watching television and just watch the outcomes. I am a Wisconsin nice son of a Lutheran minister who asked you permission to give you grief. We have different styles, but look at the outcomes. Look at what we've done. You don't go from 850 employees to 625 by accident. That's a 25% reduction. I'll shake Donald Trump's hand when he reduces the federal bureaucracy by 25%. No pressure. But if we even did 20% of that at the state level, right? That's we reduce the whole state bureaucracy by 5%. It would be like moving a mountain. Nobody said when I got to the county, oh yeah, you know what? You should shoot for 25% of an employee reduction. That would have been crazy talk. We just did it slowly but surely. You apply business principles to government. Government is not business. I want to be real clear about that. We aren't trying to make profits and we aren't trying to create customers. We have a service to provide that lines up with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and that is it. I believe the way to achieve Doge is to do it slow but sure. You're never going to see me standing on a stage with a chainsaw and a cheese head. It's just not going to happen. I don't look that good in a cheese head. But if you look what I've done in Washington County, I might not be a doctor, but I did use a scalpel. And I figured out how to work the system time and again and again and again and again. And that's exactly what I'll do as governor. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. You're facilitating.
Yes.
How do you feel about medical marijuana for Wisconsin? I am very upset that our Republicans, some of them, are supporting that as an idea.
So here's what I think. I think the ship has sailed. We've lost the issue. It's gone. All of America is going to have some form of legalization. And you know how I know that to be true? President Trump is slipping to the public that they are contemplating declassifying marijuana. It's coming. The question is, how do you regulate it sensibly? And here's the other thing I know. I have literally sat on the state line in Michigan, in Florence County, okay, in a bar, and met people in the bar who make trips monthly to get their stash. Like this is Oleo.
Yeah.
Some of you are old enough to know what I'm talking about, right? That's the state of affairs we're in. We have to be serious. And now, I'm concerned because marijuana legalization is the wild, wild west, and you have one extreme in Denver, Colorado, and you have another extreme in the first round of bills that the legislature proposed with having government dispensaries, which is bad, you know what, crazy. It's because it's all over the board, we've created an environment that is actually gonna harm people. Marijuana today is not marijuana of 1960.
No.
It just isn't. The dosage that nobody really knows what's in this weed. And I knew there was a problem when the psychiatrists in our community, and psychiatrists, I mean, doctor, you could probably attest to this. If this is right and this is left, this is where psychiatrists generally stand. When they started coming to me and saying, you gotta do something about weed, and I'm thinking, oh God, here we go. They want us to be Denver. People are getting hooked, Josh. We have clients that are killing themselves because of weed. No, you're not. They are going into psychosis,
Right.
and they can't get out, and we can't help them. When they started coming to me and saying that, I knew we had a problem. So somewhere in between those things, we have to have a sensible regulation. Nobody in America knows what it is. And frankly, until the federal government gives us some direction with what the classification level ought to be, it's going to be very hard to decipher what legalization is. All of that is a long way of saying, I think we need to have a Blue Ribbon Commission study on where do we go? What is the sensibly regulated way? Because I have literally talked to cancer patients in the last 180 days, who that is their only option for reprieve, short of opioids, and they are scared to death of getting on opioids because of everything that's happened with opioids. So I think it's a very thin and difficult line to walk. I think we need to figure out how to walk it. We can chew gum and walk at the same time. We need to regulate it sensibly, and we need to legalize it in some form, medical in particular. I'm not sure exactly where the line is, but it's somewhere near that.
Yes, in regards to real estate taxes, since I've gone around with a couple different assessors and people, and actually called the Department of Revenue, a large part of the issue appears to be, and I'll tell you who our assessor was, it's Larry Price out of Manawha.
Okay.
He gets a directive from the Department of Revenue telling him how much he is expected to raise the taxes, and they don't care what the property's selling for.
Right.
He will raise it regardless of improvements to a certain amount.
Yes.
This is what is falling down to, you have municipalities. I was just working on a job in Kaukauna, and I talked to one of the building inspectors there. He said, we don't care what you build here. It will assess for a minimum of $350,000, or we're not gonna let you build it.
Yeah.
The Department of Revenue,
They're from the government, they're there to help.
yeah.
Mark,
The Department
what's
of
your
Revenue.
question, Mark? What's your question?
Right. The Department of Revenue was removed from the responsibility of the Secretary of the Treasury, of the State Treasurer, and was placed under the executive of the governor. So what would you do to bring them into control?
The whole entire Department of Revenue, or specifically with regard to assessing?
The whole Wisconsin Department of Revenue, if they have something that has to do with money, has been removed from the supervision of the State Treasurer because it's part of the executive.
Well, that's a really complicated question because there's so many pieces of the Department of Revenue. But let me continue down your assessing path. Assessing is a complete quagmire, intentionally designed that way. We've broken it on purpose, and there's nobody who has any interest in fixing it because we're obsessed with local control. Nobody knows what the hell that means. Every town, village and city in the state have their own assessing contract. There is no uniformity in how that operates. They're simply given directives from DOR on what standards they've got to hit, and they'll go chase whatever standard. They just want to get paid. And the town, villages, and cities will pay them accordingly. The DOR is creation of the legislature and the governor. It's not one or the other, it's both. I definitely think the state treasurer's office needs responsibility, otherwise abolish it, even though the people of the state of Wisconsin said don't abolish it. Therefore, you've got to give it some authority, and tax collections is that authority. But as regards specifically to assessments, the only way you're going to improve assessments is if you change where the authority or the accountability sits. The accountability ultimately should, in my opinion, be like every other state in the country except for I think 7, and that is counties do assessing. Counties do assessing because when it's in my county, there's 20 municipalities. In Marathon County, there's 60. When you have that many different entities doing it, you get a little different equation all the time. It's what results in apportionment. I think if we had a more centralized process for counties to have it, and then some level of authority to an elected official, I think it'd make a heck of a lot more sense. That's a really complicated answer, but it's a really complicated question.
This is related, you could expand a little bit more on the affordable housing, very tough issue, I've seen it in my own family, so kids can't afford houses.
Yeah.
How would you try to have impact on that?
Did everybody hear that question? The question was, how do we have an impact on the affordability of housing? Summarized, okay? Okay, so I would encourage you to go to our county's website or just simply Google next generation housing. You're gonna find a boatload of stuff on housing. When I ran for county executive in 2019 into 2020, I started to study like what issues do I want to solve, and the first big one, I was the school board president at Hartford Union High School, and I knew 50% of our students leave and most of them never come back. 25% of our students go off to the military or sow their wild oats wherever they go, and they never come back, and 25% stay in town and work in blue collar trades, generally speaking. How do I crack that 75%, even getting a quarter of them to return? What I found was that housing is the #1 issue, and this was 6 years ago. This is when the average price of a home was just under $300,000 in Washington County. So what I started to study, going back first to World War II, and then all the way back pre-Civil War, how have we solved this in the past? You know why we can't fix this? Because there's nobody alive who has applied those lessons that we learned post-World War II. No one. The people who are alive benefited from it, but nobody actually went through the process of changing it. So, right after World War II, what did we build? Salt box houses, 1,100 square feet on a quarter-acre lot with, a one-car garage, nothing fancy. There wasn't matching mailboxes and matching light posts and sidewalk on both sides and curb and gutter on each side and 66-foot right-of-ways and 20 feet setbacks on each side. Half-acre lots, not quarter-acre lots. God forbid we can hand salt to our neighbor out the window. All of that has changed. When those developments were approved back in the late 1940s, early 1950s, two big things happened. The federal government created the Federal Housing Administration as we know it, but their role was different. Many people, probably some in this room, have had an FHA mortgage. But after World War II, FHA was a lending institution to developers. 0 to 1% loans. And the incentive for them at 0 to 1% was build as many small houses on small lots as you possibly can. Of course, the incentive for a municipality is lots of new assessment. But the only way you get a development and the funding from the federal government is if you allow this exact type of housing and you adopt zoning codes. Zoning codes then were 60 pages long. You know how thick zoning codes are today? Zoning codes, subdivision codes, comprehensive plans, architectural review plans. They're about like that. You can't build quarter-acre lots with 1,100 square foot homes. That's the starter home for most young people even today. They're illegal to build in most places in America. I believe the solution to the problem is to allow for homes like that again, in mass. Now, I'm not opposed, I joke about the apartment buildings, I'm not opposed to them. We certainly need $400,000 and $500,000 and $600,000 homes, I'm not opposed to them either. But what we have created is a situation where you build let's say you can get to a $350,000 home. You can actually build at that low price point, and that's low, very low. The average cost of government fees and regulations on that house is $60,000 to $80,000 depending on where you live. So 20 to 25% of the cost is just paying the government off to allow you to build a home. Everything from setback requirements, to building permits, to impact fees, to water and sewer connections, to sidewalk on both sides, which, by the way, you put the sidewalk in before the home is built, you build the home, and then you destroy the sidewalk as you build the home, and then you have to pull the sidewalk in and put in new sidewalk. No lie, almost every community in Wisconsin. That's probably about $20,000 every time you do it. So I believe you have to get down to the root cause, and the root cause is government sucks. And we have to wind back as much of that regulatory regime that we've created, and that is what it is, including permit fees. We've done this in Jackson, Wisconsin, which is just south of West Bend, and we have, at that time, the lowest price developers told us they could possibly hit was $450,000. We can't get below $450,000. We're selling homes at $320,000. You can do it. The municipality was cooperative, I will say, but difficult. They moved the ball one rotation down a hill that's a mile long, and we still got to $320,000. I believe we can get to $250,000, and you get up north of Highway 23, you get north of Highway 10, I think you can get lower than that. But you have to have government that is willing to undo itself and get the heck out of the way. That's a big ask. Now, as governor, I've got a big club. There are states who have, I don't know if any of you live along lakes, but about 10 years ago, a little less than that, the state, under State Representative Jarko's bill and Governor Walker signing it, took shoreline zoning and basically cut it off at the knees. They basically set a standard and said, this is the most you can do as a county, this is the most you can regulate. There are states doing the same thing with residential construction and saying, the most you can charge for a permit is this, the most you can regulate for setbacks is this. That same thing could happen. State of Montana is a good example. Does that answer your question?
Great answer, thank you.
Yeah.
So I live in Grand Chute, which is by Appleton.
Yeah,
Kind of a
it's where
different kind of
it's where the
question.
mall is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so, started getting, involved in, our town government, and we have a lot of problems. We have 6-7 lawsuits against, road assessments, we just have a lot of problems, and so, was talking with, a previous town supervisor, and he says, where do we get candidates? Where do we find candidates in Grand Chute that will run against some of the corrupt board members next year, that, assess roads crazily, against the citizens, and are also doing closed door sessions and getting rid of the administrator, without any accountability. So I guess that would be my question is, where do we go looking for candidates that would run for a town supervisor position when it's not a good situation?
In my experience, I've been in city, village, and county government for 20 years. In my experience, the best candidates are the ones who've been aggrieved by something. And I don't mean just like one issue, but they have a reform mindset. So something happened to them. So let's say, for example, they had a new sidewalk put in and they got assessed for that sidewalk. And they had a perfectly good sidewalk and they're furious about this sidewalk issue. And then they go to the village board and they find out there's these 10 other problems with what's going on. it's not just my sidewalk, they have all these other issues happening, I need to fix this. That's generally how it works. If you find those people who aren't just one issue candidates, but then translate it into basically what you just described, I think you just described yourself as a wonderful candidate for the town of Cranston. But it truly is somebody who is willing to harness the energy from one issue and then understand the others that exist. You don't need to go and get the guy with the car dealership whose name is on the Ford dealership. You don't need that. You need the car salesman who talks to everybody who walks in the door. You don't need the guy who owns the Piggly Wiggly. You need the guy who's packing groceries, who got screwed over by the sidewalk assessment. That's what you need. The person who's interacting with folks all the time, who you probably see all the time and you don't even think about it. The guy who's cutting people's hair and listening every single day as they're pissing and moaning about whatever happened at the town hall. Whoever that person is who's actually willing to put their name on a ballot, and let me tell you, running for elected office, whether it's school board, which I've done, whether it's county executive, which I've done, whether it's governor, which I've done, is awful. It is awfully hard, it's taxing, it takes away from everything else in your life, and you have to be very motivated and diligent. So yeah, I'm sure you can find that person at any turning moment, any waking moment. But it's generally somebody who's experienced frustration with government.
Hey, in my examination of state government, one of the biggest tools of corruption is the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, which is, I guess, responsible for the Foxconn debacle, among many other things. How do you feel about its mission and its existence as a private-public partnership function of state government?
So the public-private partnership, I don't mind so much. I don't like the fact that most of what they do you can't really follow. There's no good way to be able to track it. Let me just give you the example of Washington County. So in Washington County, we have an economic development corporation. It also is a public-private partnership, but all the money is county controlled. So we don't send money over to EDWC like I understand WEDC receives, and then they administer it. Instead, our Economic Development Corporation has to come to the county, and we have audited results every year. So there's a report that comes out every year, and it's loans only. Up until recently, we had never done a grant, and the only grant we've ever done was with money I didn't want. I tried to fight away anyway, and that was ARPA money. But aside from that, it's all loan funded, and it's all monitored on a regular basis. I don't know, and I haven't seen that with WEDC. There's definitely a role for economic development corporations, but I'm quite certain, under the auspices that it was originally created, that there's room for plenty of improvement with WEDC.
Last question.
So if you get the governorship, what actions are you gonna take to stop the CCP from buying up the Wisconsin farmland?
Well, when I'm governor in January of 2027, I know there's several bills that the legislature is working on that prohibit it outright. But don't fool yourself, it's not just them coming and buying farmland. It's also leveraging things like solar farms and wind farms, which are really just funnels of money back to many of the CCP programs. I mean, I think solar and wind is a disaster. My personal belief about energy in general is we should be focusing all of our physical and mental energy on nuclear energy, which is what I grew up with in Kewanee through middle school and high school. Like the whole entire town was employed by that nuclear power plant. But I think that's where we should spend our time and energy. And this wind and solar, I know people get nervous about data centers. I've got one going up like 10 miles from my house, and the transmission lines are gonna come right through about 2 miles north of me. My bigger concern isn't data centers. My bigger concern is solar and wind farms, because for every one data center, there's 100 acres. Every 1 acre of data center, there's 100 acres of solar and wind farms at the pace we're going. Like they're gonna eat up all of our good ag land. So I believe that's where we've got to focus our energy, but I also know there's plenty of good bills out there to just stop sale of farmland to any foreign entity, CCP or otherwise. All right, thank you again for the opportunity.